I'm going to start by making a new AI standard surface node, so I will take this one and delete it. You'll see that my egg turns pink in the render and green in my perspective view. That's the color of an object that doesn't have a texture assigned to it. When I make a new AI standard surface, I can middle mouse drag that and assign it, and that will give me a nice blank canvas to work with. In this discussion, I'm going to be discussing 2D textures and utility nodes. To keep things simple, there are only a few types that we'll be using. For example, I will be using the Maya fractal node. When I type out fractal, you see that I get 4 options: fractal projection, stencil, texture, and a solid fractal. In each case, when I see these options, I will be picking the texture. The others generate extra nodes that we won't really need, and the solid fractal is in fact a 3D texture rather than a 2D texture, which is a completely different discussion. Anytime I make a 2D node like a fractal, I will be getting 2 things. First, I will be getting the fractal itself. A fractal is an algorithm. It's a black and white pattern generated by a mathematical equation. You'll see that it has a number of attributes, and feel free to adjust these as you need. They each do something different, and they each do something interesting. For my part, I very rarely change the pattern here. Instead, what I will do is I will take the place2D node associated with the fractal, and I will use this to change the size and scale of the pattern. For example, I can take the place2D node and adjust its repeats in the U and V direction, and that will get me a smaller, tighter pattern. The more I use, the smaller and tighter the pattern will become. I can stretch in one direction rather than both directions and get almost a stripy pattern like television noise. As I adjust this dot pattern, I can also mirror all of my repeats across U and V, and I can stagger them, so I can generate a surprising number of dots just with this one node. You'll see that I've also got the ability to rotate, which can be fun. So the place2D node is a very powerful tool. It generated itself automatically when I created the fractal, and that's true of any 2D texture. The 2D texture types available, if I click over here in 2D, you'll see that there are a large number of them. One of them is the file node, so if you're still working with image files, I can make a file texture, and you'll see that that comes in associated with the place2D as well. I said we'd really only be working with a few. The fractal is the first one. As I mentioned, it's a randomly generated algorithm using black and white data. The next node I'm going to make is a noise texture. That one serves the same function as the fractal. It's a black and white pattern generated by an algorithm. It comes in with its own place2D node. The big difference between them is that the noise node has different types of noise. So it starts with this billow pattern that looks almost like bubbles. It's got a wispy feature. It's got a wave feature that I think looks almost like cloth when you use it properly. It's got this space-time that just looks like clouds. But it can be fun to come in and change the black and white pattern, so that's what the noise node is for. It also has a place2D texture, so I can do all of the same things with setting up repeats, rotating, staggering, and mirroring. The third type of node I'm going to make is a ramp. The ramp is Maya's version of a gradient. When I click on it, you see I get this diagram. In this case, I'm going from black on this end to white on this end. To move the sliders around, I'm clicking on the dot above the display. If I want to remove a slider, I can click on the box with the X in it. That will remove the slider. To add more sliders, I click in the body of the gradient, and now I've got this new dot that I can pull around. To change the color of the slider, down here I have a selected color option. We'll make that red, and now my gradient slides between red and white. If this diagram isn't giving you enough room, this arrow key will create a bigger version so you can have more room to move around. This new window will also give you the ability to adjust your selected color and to change your selected position. So right now I've got this white slider selected. If I wanted it to happen exactly halfway across the gradient, I would set it to 0.5. Then maybe I would make another slider by clicking in the body of the gradient. I will slide this one over to 1, click on selected color, and we'll make that one yellow. Back here in the property editor, I have the ability to add waves to my gradient, and a wave, as you can see in the material viewer, will give you like a swingin' 70s pattern. In this case, you'll see that my V wave does a lot, and my U wave doesn't do anything at all. That's because if I look at the top of the ramp attributes, I'm currently using a V ramp. If I switch this over to be a U ramp, now the U wave would work, and the V wave would not. Before I discuss the other ramp types, I will also mention that there is a noise attribute. Now I've got kind of a lava lamp effect, and a noise frequency, so I can make the noise bigger or smaller. I'll reset those to their defaults, and now I'll come back up here. You've seen the V ramp. It runs in the V direction. The U ramp runs in the U direction. A diagonal ramp runs on an angle. Radial in a circle. Circular in a different kind of circle. There is a box ramp, a UV ramp, a four-corner ramp, and everyone's favorite, the tartan ramp, for when you want to make plaid patterns. We'll make that a little more pronounced. Now you can really see the plaid. It's fun. Each one of these ramp types will accept the U wave, the V wave, and the noise. So if I wanted to come back to maybe the circular ramp and add some noise here, I can get these kind of fun blobby patterns. The ramp also has a Place 2D Texture node, so if I come in here and I give this more repeats, let's do again a 4x4. Now you'll see I get this nice repeated pattern that looks almost like fabric. So the ramp is a very flexible, very powerful node. There's all kinds of fun stuff that you can do with it. I'm going to pause this video here. When I come back, I will talk about some creative utilities that we can use to make these nodes even more interesting.